Hi, Alchemist here, and I'm going to be going over my Marrow Shard build that I've had for quite a while, and I only recently started playing again. It's actually pretty fun. It's pretty good. And before I go further, I want to let you know that this is not a guide. This is a discussion and showcase of my build the way it currently is. I'm not going to be able to tell you step by step how I went from level 1 to level 93 where I'm currently at, because I'm not level 100 yet. But I'm not going to be able to discuss all of that, so I just want to let you know this is just currently where I'm at. The skills that I use for this build are Transplant, Bone Curse, Spirit Plague, Reperform, and Marrow Shards. Not going to go over a single individual node, but I'll tell you how my thought process a bit. I went for the Bone Armor. That way you take less damage, because Bone Armor, when you have it, you take 12% less damage, which is good, so you survive longer. I went for Sticky Blood. That way when you do teleport and things are in it, they move slower to you, so you can get away faster and be able to survive. Of course, this if you're standing in it, you'll heal, which is great. Rip Blood, so if you cast it when things are around you, you can actually get some life back and survive some more. A little bit AoE, so you hit things a little better with Transplant, and it increases that size of the pool as well. And then just because a little more damage. I don't know why. Maybe I'll take those out and just put bigger AoE, or do that eventually. Bone Curse is one of the major damage components of this build. It basically requires 4 nodes: First Limbs, Ruptured Corpse, Illusion of Pain, and of course Sigil of Mortality. This isn't required. I like it for single target. You don't really need it. You can do just fine without it. You can actually put another point into maybe 4 damage here, but I went for this just because I like it on single target. It makes you do a little more damage against the boss mob, which is great. Thinking of boss mobs, this is very important to have against boss mobs. Some sort of threshold kill, or colon strike, if you want to call it that, if you play a Path of Exile. This is great for any build. Try to get as much as you can. Most builds are somewhere between 10 and 15. There are a few like this one, you're gonna actually get 20% if you want, but I don't really need it because I have it here. And so the way this works is generally with Bone Curse, you would cast it in an area and would put Bone Curse in a smaller area, and curse everything. Now because I have this, I can only Bone Curse on one target at a time, but it lasts infinitely, of course. So in order to keep from having to cast this on every single mob, I use Cursed Limbs. So for the next 5 seconds I have to cast some Bone Curse, which is a 6-second cooldown. I can keep Bone Curse constantly up on every single target that I currently hit single target with it. It won't, if you do an AoE attack, it'll just pick one of basically the one that's more in the center to put Bone Curse on, which is fine. Doesn't really matter. So, but if you kill that mob with Bone Curse, it can proc Ruptured Corpse, which will do AoE damage around that mob. It won't spread Bone Curse because you can't use Bone Curse to spread Bone Curse. You have to actually hit it with something else, but it will still do that explosion, which will do more damage to everything else around, which is great. You get Illusion of Pain and also Acute Affliction, because when you do finally hit with Bone Curse, what Bone Curse does do is damage. They do 180% more damage, as well as a 30%, and as well as lowering their resist so that you do another 25%-ish damage. So plus it always crits, which is good, so that's even better. So Bone Curse, so that's it. I lost my train of thought for a second there, but yeah, that's Bone Curse is like basically one of the 2 things that does all the damage for this build. It's great for AoE, it's great for helping your single target as well. Next I have Spirit Plague. Spirit Plague is not a damage component, more of a buff debuff type component that I have in this build. It slows mobs, it'll add Frailty. Frailty is every stack of Frailty decreases their damage by 6%, stacks up to 3 times, which is great. It works on bosses just as well as regular mobs, of course. I use Heroic Fascination, so that way every time something gets afflicted with Spirit Plague, I get 4% more spell damage. This will last for 4 seconds. You can get an infinite amount of stacks of it. I don't really get a ton of stacks. I might get somewhere between 5 and 10 stacks up constantly, but hey, that's an extra bonus damage. That's great. And with Plague Burst, when you hit something that has it, has a chance to spread it. And of course, when you crit with something that has it, which Bone Curse is going to crit, it'll spread it. So you keep Bone Curse up, you use Spirit Plague, and you hit stuff, and when Bone Curse goes off and crits, it spreads it, and then when it spreads it, you get the 4% damage increase. And then of course I just put these points in here in order to get more ward when I hit stuff, because this isn't a ward build, but a little bit of ward is better than 0, I guess. And I figured I'd put points there. I might take a point out of the mana efficiency and put it here. I put this here because the cast speed matters a lot when you're trying to survive. What cast speed generally does is it makes things happen faster. So attack speed's the same sort of thing. So attack speed, cast speed. What it does, it increases your animation of your character, which if you're finished, there's no animation canceling. Just want to say that. The reason why this cast speed is so important, because you can't cancel animation, you need to be able to finish your animation faster to be able to teleport or dash or move out of the way of damage a lot faster just with walking. So cast speed is actually a survival component as well as an offensive component. So it's both defensive and offense if you get a fair amount of it, which is why it's good. Reaper, it's more like a buff than like a major damage for me, because the way I went for is I went over here to get the be able to move faster. 2 points in there is just fine. You know, it keeps the stacks up pretty constantly while you're in a map on a monolith or something. Of course, here more cast speed, just like I was just talking about. Cast speed is very important for survivability. I went over here in order to put enough points to get to a Veil Shroud, which of course is more defense, so that you can put more points towards other things, so you don't always have to stack all kinds of poison and necrotic defense on your gear. And then I went down here to Reaper's Ascendance, so as long as you're in Reaper form, you continually gain spell damage, which constantly ramps up your damage that you do to things the longer you're in it, which is great, because more damage is important. For Marrow Shards, this is the bread and butter of the build. This is what is built around. I have a few things I want to discuss about it, but currently the way I have it set up is I have 4 points here into double cast, which it'll allow you to do it, and it'll spend, because the way Marrow Shards works is it spends your health instead of mana. And it's not like a set, like it doesn't do like 50 or 10. It does, like I said, 9% of your health. So if you have 500 health, you're not going to use as much as if you have 1,000 health. There are ways to lower that, and I'll discuss that too as I get further in. But for right now, I have 4 points here. I have 1 point here to increase the damage by 100%. You no longer pierce, which is fine. The pierce wasn't even that great. I really don't care too much about the pierce. I put 2 points here in leech just because if you hit something, you can get that 9% that you lost back pretty fast, because the amount of damage you do, it just constantly leeches. And if you get hit, you have that leech going off, because the way leech works is it'll give you back, let's say you get 100 hit points back for you're gonna get 100 hits. It'll do it over 3 seconds. So, and there's different so if you hit one time and you hit a second time and there's a second delay, you'll still get those stacks for the other one. I know it's kind of confusing to say, but every time you hit, you get a stack of leech. Now each hit has its own individual amount as well as time, so you can have an infinite amount of leech stacks on you, but they only last for 3 seconds for the most part, unless you get things that modify that makes it faster or last longer. And I went 4 points down here because I wanted to get down to the crit, so I can crit more often. More crit you do, the more damage you do, and the more chance it has to spread Spirit Plague with Agonizing Expanse. Which is why I went for that for the most part. I have Bone Splinters. There's 2 types. There's Bone Splinter, and then there's Splinter and Impact. The difference between 2 is Splinter and Impact will do its full length of the spell cast, and then at the end of it, it'll splinter off into splinters. With Bone Splinter, it'll basically do it if you have anywhere between where it can the full length of Marrow Shard cast itself and you. So basically you can shotgun in front of yourself anywhere that you want, not having to just wait for it to hit a target. So and I like that a lot better. That feels a lot more bursty, especially when there's a bunch of mobs in front of your face. You can just shotgun them down with Bone Splinters, which is good. I put 1 point in here, just increases damage, could do a lot of damage because this only works for the Marrow Shard component. It doesn't work for the Bone Splinter, so Bone Splinter is its own damage component, while everything over here is from Marrow Shard. So if you want to make it based around Bone Splinters, you'll have to go for all this stuff here in order to make Bone Splinter a lot stronger. Sorry, I had to clear my throat a little bit. That's the skills that I currently have. Let me go with the passives real fast. I have 4 points here in the blood order. Eventually I'm gonna end up maxing. Actually, at 1 point, I just put it in there right now. Screw that. There you go. Got 5 points in there now. I don't have anything I want to put in here at the moment. I'd rather finish this off. I got 8 points here for the intelligence and necrotic resistance. 1 point here in order to get enough to be able to get to the next part, which is ward retention, which is okay. It's not the major thing of this build, but you basically want it for the resistances because that's less stuff you have to worry about on gear. I put extra points here to get some health and some regen because vitality now gives health and regen, and of course here to get even more regen. Because I didn't always have Reperform. Reperform for me for this build is new, so having all this regen, I might get rid of some of it because when you Reperform, you don't have any regen anymore, but you do get a lot more damage and leech. So I might actually end up getting rid of these regen nodes and pick something else, but for right now that's what I have, and that's how it's working out for me. For leech, I pick of course more spell damage leech, that way you can survive long and then you can keep constantly get health back. Here for the damage, here for the vitality and regen. Like I said, this was from before I started adding Reaper, and I think I might keep it or get rid of it, depends upon what I need. I didn't pick up Reaper here because I don't need the colon strike from this because I have it on Bone Curse, so that saved me some points just for putting 3 points in the Bone Curse. It saved me 6 points here on this tree, so I can put it elsewhere. FI here for ward retention, just because I don't have a lot of ward, but I might as well keep a little bit of it, and the mana is cool, even though I don't need mana for this build. Put 10 and 10 here. Physical penetration. The more you penetrate, the more damage you'll do to a mob. 5 here. 2 reasons: cast speed and more crit. 5 here. 50% crit, and this is basically where you get your ward from. You're not going to get as much of it from Spirit Plague, getting a ward from hitting them. You're going to get mainly from here because you're going to crit a lot, and you'll get a fair amount of ward from here. Like on bosses, I sit between 2 and 500, depends upon how much I'm getting hit as well. So basically it's just an extra buffer between life and death that you constantly have regening. Of course, crit multiplier, 5 there. I put 5 here because again, more cast speed, and the important thing is leech on hit, and the hit counts for both spell and melee attack. So if I use when you switch to Reperform, this will switch to Reap, and Reap is now like a little dash type thing, and that counts as a hit, so that'll help with get some leech back as well, and get some life back from leeching. And of course here's spell damage, which is great, and then 5% more leech, and increase the amount of leech that you get from health. Might put points into here, I don't know yet. I don't know how bad that health drain is going to affect me if I get rid of a bunch of the health regen that I have. I've thought about putting points in there because I'm thinking about just taking 5 points out of here and putting there and seeing if that extra 10 will help me out, because I think you get 4%, so 5 times 8 is 40, so I would actually get more ward retention from having 5 points here, but I don't know if that 5 points is going to drain a lot of my life. I'll have to figure that out. That's the way I currently have it. As far as the gear goes, I went with cast speed, basic cast speed. You got cast speed here, I got cast speed on his belt, I got cast speed here, and I got cast speed here. Physical damage, penetration, I put shred armor on that one, and this one I think I have, yeah, chance to apply frailty on hit because I don't always cast Spirit Plague as much as I should, so this helps me keep frailty on mobs when I don't cast Spirit Plague as often as I probably should. I just need to get used to that. As far as the gear goes, I also went for physical damage leech and a more crit here with physical spells, and of course reduce costs for health. So that way when I do use Marrow Shards, it costs 25% less health, which is great. And which these will actually help too, because that's 10 and 9, that's 19, so that's 25, 35, 44% less for me to have to spend life. So basically it's almost like half the cost. Instead of costing 10, it costs 5 per attack, which I don't know the exact amount. But I also went for this because this, even though it says, okay, so it says it affects Marrow Shards and Bone Nova. Bone Nova is I believe it is this, which that's basically what it does. Like if I take that off, because watch, so if you see where it's going, it basically ends over here. If I take that off, now they end right here. So even it affects the bone splinters too as well. So basically you can hit more things with it and shotgun in front of you a lot more than you normally would have. So that's why I went ahead and put that. I didn't used to have that there. What am I doing? I didn't used to have these here. I just had 4 of these, and then I had something else that had leech and physical damage. But I went ahead and put 2 of these here, and then I put 2 of these here instead. So instead of having, I think I had 2 10s and 2 9s. Instead of having, what, math is fun. Instead of having 38, I've kind of cut it in half to 19%. So I use a little more life, but I actually have a lot more range for damage, so I can kill things a little faster. So there's that. As far as other things go, you want to make sure your crit strike avoidance is capped at 100%. Keep your defenses there. One thing I see a lot of builds they don't seem to discuss is they're missing out on monoliths. Okay, so when you do a monolith, you have 7 of them. These ones over here are more or less item based, where they matter more on drops stuff, where you have like, these are actual items like 2-handed swords and rings and stuff. That's for the fixed shards. And of course this one is 5% experience that I went and got that instead of gold drop and stuff. These are basically just like, these aren't what they call power monolith blessings. These blessings over here are power blessings, and I don't see people discussing these as much because these are actually a really good component to increase your character's power. Currently the way I have it here is on this one I have 12% to all resist, which is, if you go down here, it says 12% to all resist, 58.8% of the power roll, which means I only use about 60% of that 12, so I get about 6 to all resist from that. I can redo the whole monolith and try to get a better roll, which I will end up trying to do. But these made my build a lot tankier and a lot better, because now I get 6% resist from all that, and then from this one, Bastion of Divinity, I actually 14 to all elements. So about, I'd say somewhere around 12, maybe 13, probably like 13 all resist, or it's elementals. So basically I have 13 resist there, 6 resist here, so that's 19 resist. I don't have to worry about having on my gear at all. I don't have to worry about having that, at least for this side of the thing. So that's one thing I don't see a lot of people talking about, and that it kind of like, when you see a build, you should implement these into your build, because these are important in my opinion. These matter a lot. For this one I have crit strike multiplier, and basically this is more of your power, this is more of your build. Like a lot of builds, they don't even talk about blessings, like, well, from what I see, and I'm starting to see a lot of newer ones, they've been talking about blessings, which is good, but I wish more people will talk about the blessings. I know this is kind of more of an in-game thing, but in a way it matters, to be honest, especially if you want to keep pushing, if you want to make a character that can push arenas. In my opinion, like, I don't make characters for arenas. I don't like arena. I don't like having to sit there forever and then make one mistake and then have to waste like 2 hours. That's me personally. I wish arenas had some sort of like at 30, at 60, at 90, at 120, you can go in. That way you can keep testing your build and keep pushing it further without having to sit there for 2 hours in order to get up to wave 250 and stuff like that in order to really push your build. But I think these are just as important to a build guide or build discussion of sorts as any other component of your build, because these are power. This is your character, and it takes time to get to these, to be honest, yes, but you get to this one pretty simple, you get to this one okay, and getting this one, like, I haven't done the empowered version yet. I've been working on the empowered version in order to get to that, but I haven't quite gotten to that point. But I think those are just as important. Like, see, I'm about halfway there, and eventually I'll get it, and I'll see if I can get lucky and get crit multi. If I don't, but let me see here. Let me see if I can get lucky. All right, so this is what happens when you empower a monolith. You'll get this screen, and you can choose to either continue to do the normal one, or you can do the legendary one. The one before, it goes up to 160% modifier. So if it's 100 points, it'll be 160 points basically. It increases it by like even more. So it's good to get that up. This one is 135, but just think, if I could get, let's see here, if I can get this to be 135, then that's like, for elemental resist, what, 16, 17? My math isn't the best, I'm just guessing off the top of my head, but 4 more elemental resist, that'll put me at what, 70 on each of these, and I'll be almost capped. I'll be so close to being capped, especially if I can get a higher power roll for this one. If I can get a higher power roll for all resist, if I had 4 more points here and 6 more points there, I'd be capped on my resist right there, and I wouldn't even have to worry about it. I wouldn't have to think about it. And of course, when I go to reperform, I'm capped on these, so then I can figure out a way to get points out of my gear in order to put into here and here and get capped there. So I wish more builds would talk more about blessings as part of your build, because it is an important component in the game now. And it doesn't just affect you in Monolith, it affects you everywhere. So if you go anywhere else, that's 66, and if I go anywhere else, let's go here, let's go to Outcast Camp. I'm still at 66. So that's another component of your character too, and I wish more builds would talk about that. But yeah, that's kind of how my build is right now. I can show it off a little bit. Let me see if I can get lucky. I'll show it off on 100. I'll see if I can get lucky and get a decent one. Something not too long, not too short, or I'm not. Oh, you can see how I play it. I need to get out of reperform. There you go. Oh, one thing too, it's a little trick. If you're on cooldown with something and you zone, the cooldown goes away. Let's do this one. It works for any spell, any ability that's on cooldown. When you switch zones, it doesn't matter if it's like had another minute left or 2 seconds left. It resets the cooldown. Oh, thing froze. Please don't do that. There you go. I don't have the best computer ever, but see, if you I like the way it just proliferates sometimes, how you hit something and it just blows everything else up, spreads. Especially with the AoE from Bone Curse. So what am I looking for? Stormforge. It's up there on the right. But yeah, that's basically how I play this character. I teleport around with Transplant. Sometimes I use Harvest in order or Reap in order to move faster. Drop that because it'll spread to everything, and of course now that character is gonna do less damage as well as move slower. But yeah, On bosses, it actually works pretty well too, because you can really burst down bosses with this. But I think the way they changed their defensive stacking is if you do a lot of bursts at first, you can really kill a boss really fast now, and then before your defenses kick in. Yeah, it's simple gameplay. You drop a curse, you hit bone splinters, things die. Make sure you keep hitting things in order to keep reap, because reap will start to decay your health over time. And as long as you're constantly leeching life back with your attacks, you'll stay in reap for almost an entire monolith. Like the only time I ever drop out of reap when I'm in a monolith is if I get distracted and start talking in chat, and then, or if I went the wrong way and I went far to the left and I was supposed to go to the right, so now I got to double back all the way, and then reap will, of course, decay. But don't be afraid of Reaper form, because as soon as you hit 0 hit points with Reaper form, you instantly get full healed. So you're not really gonna die. As far as I can tell, you're not supposed to die unless there's a bug. But that's my build. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you sat through at least half of this video. I do talk a lot. I'm a little bit long-winded. I'm not very good at editing and stuff, but I feel I'm decent at making builds. I feel I'm decent at this game enough that I can help discuss it and provide help for other people. If you catch me on my stream on Twitch, I don't stream quite that often because I still have to go out into the real world and make money in order to survive, to keep the lights on and my internet running so I can feed my addiction with video games. But yeah, catch me on my Twitch channel, Alchemez. This is my YouTube channel if you link to that stuff. But I really appreciate anyone who sat through at least half of this video. And catch you next time. Have fun.